Just tune in to the wind touching your skin, the river in the background, the sun on your body, the gratitude, the space that's here. Whatever intention you have, set it in the space. Let's be open, let's receive, let's give. Feel this space full of gratitude, presence, clarity, and trust that anything that needs to be received to the greater world, that they receive it through anything and everything that we say or do, and just the presence that we have. Take a deep breath in, let it out. One more. Let it out. For the highest good, let's kick some ass. Thank you.
I welcome you to the next episode of Talks 21. My guest, Darin Olien, is not a wellness influencer. He is a system thinker. A former elite athlete, Darin's search to understand human performance led him far beyond conventional health advice and into global food systems, environmental health, and the hidden incentives shaping modern life. Over 2 decades, he became known as a superfood hunter, not chasing trends, but uncovering how natural systems and industrial shortcuts affect the human body. He is the co-creator of Down to Earth with Zac Efron and the author of Super Life and Fatal Conveniences, work that reveals how everyday conveniences quietly erode our health and autonomy. Darin's work bridges personal choice and civilization consequence, translating invisible systems, taxes, habits, incentives into awareness and agency. This is not a conversation about optimization. It is a conversation about responsibility, sovereignty, and what real freedom requires today. Hello, Darin.
Hi, man. Good to see you.
Great to talk to you.
Thanks for coming to my backyard.
It's a great pleasure and this beautiful place. It's so amazing. Happy to be here.
Happy that you're here.
What about happiness? How do we reach happiness? This is one of the core topics of yours. So what would you advise to all?
Well, it's a big, it's obviously, there's a subjective level of happiness for all of us. Like what you and I, what your desire of happiness is and what my desire, there's internal understandings of happiness. That's one thing. The thing that I can't reveal too much, but some of the things we're investigating and looking at in terms of a bigger lens of a container of happiness, some of the structures around happiness or contentment, you could call it. It's not this idea that I need to be happy all the time.
No.
It's really anchored in this sense of content, equanimity, and so the new docuseries, we're about halfway done right now. We looked at it through the lens of what are some of the great cultures doing some really good things. Not everything's perfect. There is no perfect, but I think the exploration of what are some of those systems in place to help that. And some of those things are access to nature. Having, if it's a country, having their citizens access to nature is extremely important. Production, overproduction. We're seeing in the West the results of pursuing things for the monetary value and that pressure and everything else. That's not just the end, because we already know the answer to that. That when you hit that place of whatever economic thing you believe you will have happiness, ultimately there's an emptiness to that.
Yes.
But there has to be also a level of pursuing an economic standard. There's also pillars of health, clearly. Health, mental health, access to good health, good food, so that we can get into all of that for sure. And then there's other things that make real good happiness, and that is having a sense of purpose. People having a sense of purpose. What is your, as the ikigai, right? So like Dan Buettner and the Blue Zones talk about that, right? So these things and many other types of that, and security is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Feeling secure in your community, being taken care of, having the government even having a level of I feel protected. It's interesting when we go to some countries, I can't reveal all of it right now, but some countries, when you actually talk to the people, they trust the government. That's not often that's not often the case. Certainly not here, right?
Yeah, but certainly not in my country either.
Right. In many countries it doesn't work, and it doesn't. But like in terms of a basic need, like if I am pregnant and I need care, there's health care, and there's maternity leave, so you can actually take care of your children. So there's certain aspects. Again, nothing's perfect. And then another very strong pillar is a understanding, or at least having a sense of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Like less government control, more access to, at least I feel a sense of freedom for me to enjoy this incredible life. Those and many other aspects are some of the things we're exploring, and we're learning from certain cultures and individuals, but as well as community is by large probably the biggest one that not only infiltrates happiness. And a 90-year study by Harvard has been showing that if there was something you could take for your own longevity, that community bypasses anything that food, supplement, anything doesn't even come close.
Yeah. Okay.
So that sense of community is so powerful. So
which relates to the sense of personal fulfillment.
Exactly. So and so these things are, it's not that we're also exploring it from what are these systems in place and what are some of these countries and cultures doing, but also it's also an individual takeaway that we can actually, if we understand some of these things, we can actually start building our own community. We can start coming together and understanding some of these pillars of happiness. So yeah, we're right in the middle of shooting this, and it just, now more than ever in our world, it feels more and more relevant to bring about a level of choice that we can choose, because there's so many things out there that we have no control. We want to have control over, but we can't. And so oftentimes, and this is my personal opinion, oftentimes we give our energy away. If this person, if this government, if this thing would only change, then I would be happy.
Which is certainly not.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's what we do in our romantic relationships too.
Yeah.
Like, well, if you would just be better, if you would just, tell me you love me at a particular time and in this way, then I will be. And of course there is some of that. But I think the thing that we give away too easily is the power of our own sovereignty. The power that we have. I mean, Viktor Frankl was such a great example of, like, under horrible conditions in Auschwitz and everything else, you start to realize that there is something within all of us that is actually untouchable, that if we cultivate the awareness of our kingdom inside, that ultimately that's the place we go. But again, these pillars that can help us have a better chance at that is something it's probably the funnest thing I've done to this point, to try to help us as humans have a better chance at a greater life, and not just accept life or being told what life is. It seems like through media and social media, we're just being told, oh, this is what it is, and now I'm stressed and I should react this way. And we have a lot more agency over many
I believe this is a crucial observation. To me, happiness relates to personal freedom and being able to have own opinion, own view, and also having the right to any information to be able to choose, not 100%. That the government decides what I can see or do.
Exactly.
It's very crucial to me. I think it's important for us to open the inner happiness, which is in the end, the happiness depends on our soul, on our inside.
Exactly. Yeah,
what may be also good for people who watch. I would like to stress one thing concerning the wealth point of view. It is a kind of necessary assumption for person to be happy to have some minimum level of dependency, a minimum level of consumption. But at the same time, it certainly is not the case that as one is richer, the happiness grows, right? There has been a lot of research done at certain level, let's say double the average salary or something, the happiness starts to drop on average with the amount of money which you have. Which from my personal experience, I can say it's not that I would be less happy with more money, but more money gives you more responsibility. So one needs to be able to control it, not to fall into the category of being addicted or just too much dependent on.
100%. There's a fall off to that, right? And we also know the lottery effect. Like if someone wins a lottery, they're actually not. They're not psychologically capable, energetically capable of receiving that amount of money, and oftentimes they lose it very fast and they end up worse than they thought.
Exactly. So they lose happiness by getting money.
Again, so we put happiness, we weigh it against the wrong things oftentimes. And we've been told so much that society, certainly in the West, that if you have this success, if you make this money, that is the end all be all, and clearly that's not.
That's not, and especially if people believe it, and then they manage to reach some level, and they are even more unhappy because they are disappointed.
And you're everywhere you go, there you are. Right. So no matter what change, if you're not happy and situations change, you're still unhappy. Maybe a little more dangerous with more money. I don't know, but you know, it's that inner state that is very important. And I think, you know, helping people to get out, because if you're in a bad situation, you're in that lower level of Maslow's need, right? So, hey, your survival, you have to do whatever you need to do. And so keeping people in that state is not a good thing, because then they're in fear state. And so there is a level, I'm not a big fan of governments dictating these things, but there is a certain level of, you know, I've spent a lot of time in places like Africa and India, and it was so astonishing to me that anywhere I went, people didn't have access to clean water or good food. And I was like, how is this possible as a human family? That from a resource perspective, one of the richest places on the planet, the continent of Africa, is so in despair of basic needs that it doesn't make sense. And so as a human family, we've failed in a lot of ways, that people should have access to sunlight and putting their feet on the ground and having food and water. But, you know, for me, when I saw those situations, my instinct is always like, well, what can we do? What can we build? What can we create? I think you're probably the same. I don't like to wait around for people to solve things.
We don't want to see suffering, right?
Right.
That doesn't make sense.
And I don't want to wait around for it. Because like, okay, they're going to fix it. Are they?
No.
Well, they haven't.
No.
Right?
And they will not.
Yeah.
We need to fix it.
Yeah. So
we are responsible.
So there's a lot of great people, and I love the work that you're doing and connecting people together so that we can actually share thought, share resources, share opportunity, put ourselves in a probability that better outcomes will happen.
Yes.
Right? The more work you do in that space, you're creating opportunity where opportunity didn't exist. And we don't have to understand we don't have to know the end before we pursue something. Right? I mean, there was a unbelievable moment. It was maybe 12 years ago. I was in Kenya, and I happened to be sitting under a mango tree with Obama's grandmother, right? And we were there because she was working with a community of children that didn't have clean water. Obama's grandmother was in a community where there was very little clean water. So it's just like, wow. I'm not saying he was responsible for not getting his like, who knows why these things exist, but what we ended up doing and the work we did with this nonprofit, we got 500,000 children clean water that didn't have it. So instead of overthinking, going, why? Because I could sit in that and I could actually have paralysis. Because if I try to think of why do these kids not have clean water, I don't know if I could ever find out the real reason. But what I can do is go into a solution, try to figure out what can we do. And so I think at the core of everything I have done and everything I continue to do is try to create opportunities for more things to be done that really do need to be done.
Yeah, this is great. Concerning our happiness, I believe it's one of the things that seems to me that in order for most people to be happy, for us to be happy, we need to be able to step out of our comfort zones. I believe that as people, we need to find more courage to be able to go through risk, to accept risk, because it's our part of our life. And as we are in the state that we want all state control everything, no risk, be everything secure, then the society tends to degenerate. So on one side, there are places, as you mentioned, where people suffer, and it is terrible. On the other side, we are in the Western society, which is just too lazy, and I believe there is a collapse coming in, and people are not able to raise their or their voice, and I believe this is important. We need to be able to also fight. So we can, if we take, for example, like old Indians, they would have rituals, right? Men go up and they get the douse, so they need to go through some pain, suffering, through some fear. So I believe this is something that might be missing in Western societies as well.
Big time. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's the reason I called my book Fatal Conveniences, because it's so convenient that it starts flipping to the other side. We actually get a level of apathy, and we need to actually step in and challenge our own sense of self. I think it starts there, but also it isn't easy to create something that doesn't exist. You know, it is hard work, but by not leaning in, I think is not a good plan. So even people giving people food or making food for people in their own communities, all of these things matter. And it's easy not to, right? It's easy for people to not step into the courage of making change. And I think the fulfillment that you get when you're contributing to something greater than yourself potentially is one of the greatest superpowers that we have, stepping into something that isn't easy, and but then going for it.
Yeah.
and challenging something, challenging yourself.
I believe this is crucial, and we could see there have been the trials done with mice. Like you create heaven for mice or paradise or Eden for mice, and then it degenerates in 2 years. It totally degenerates.
They get fat and die.
Exactly, it doesn't, and actually they start to be aggressive, and it is very crazy. And this, in a sense, I believe this might be happening to us as humans. So I believe that what we need, it is important for us personally to be able to go out of the comfort zone, to push ourselves, to help on one side, and also to push ourselves to do sport, or just being able to make the energy to go through discomfort. I believe is so crucially important. And if we don't do it ourselves, then it will come otherwise.
100%.
Distracted society, conflicts in a separated society, which is what we are seeing.
I'm curious, I'm going to ask you a question, actually. I'm curious for you, when was your wake-up call? Like, what happened for you? Because you're a mathematician. You're, but you're connected to your heart, because I can feel it, right? So for you, what was that matrix moment?
That's a great question. Actually, I had a few wake-up calls. One of them was in the year 1999, where I had a serious ski accident. I was over 2 days without subconscious. And then I had for 9 months, I have headaches, but also some visions, connections to nirvana, I would call it.
Wow.
And at that time, I was a total skeptic. I would believe that all things that we are randomly created, spontaneous creation by Stephen Hawking, everything being random, just by having unlimited number of chances that we are lucky to be in this world. So they opened the door a little bit for me, and then I also years later I started to observe that things happen in synchronicities, that we are not just purely random situations. And that totally started to change my life, and then I continue with that. Wow. But actually, I had a few more, but one big change was when I was in Peru for a healing trip with my close friend. I had several ayahuascas per day, and the reason was that I had back displaced disc, huge pain. And actually, I say the story quickly. This is because it's amazing. My friend, he is very experienced. He got the best shamans for healing for Peru when we were coming. But those shamans that he got, when we came, they were floods and they couldn't make it from the mountains. So he last minute, he got another shamans, which were also great, but they were war shamans. So for war, shamans for soldiers. Yeah. Wow. So I got healed by these shamans. Of course, this is a terrible thing. Last night after ayahuasca, there was actually last night of the trip on the sacred space. I could experience something that I wouldn't want to experience again in my life. I would better die. Yeah. And this was phantom pain, which is the same as real pain. And what I felt is like if you take iron and put it, as hot iron. This is what I felt the whole night. It was something. Such a pain, just beyond. It was the worst. So I wouldn't want to go through it again. But nevertheless, it made a big change in my life as well, because it totally shifted my approach towards that. And actually, when I was a kid, I was kind of wouldn't fight. I was I was afraid of pain. But this changed my approach to pain totally, and also to life.
So it brought you a lot of, and I mean, I think it's an amazing story, and this life isn't without pain.
No.
And I think pain is such a opportunity to venture inside, and luckily you got to do it with ayahuasca. It can be a hell of a tool for that. Even this last year, I went through like a similar. I had I was laid on my back for 2 months. And I, side note, I did ayahuasca 25 years ago. But having the pain, was one of the biggest journeys of my life.
Yes.
And it was two. You want to get out of physical pain because it physically hurts, right? So I was pursuing all of the connections I had in that space and stem cells and and snake venom and you name it. I have access to it, luckily. And some of that wasn't working. The thing that worked the most, I was like, where have I felt this pain before? And it traveled me all the way back to my birth. And my birth was 1970. I was premature. I came 2 months early. I was 2 kilos.
Okay.
4 pounds for the Americans, ish.
Sure.
And I was, instead of, so there I am. So I'm doing a lot of meditation. I'm journaling and I'm in pain. I'm laying down, so I'm going into that pain. And all of a sudden I'm at my birth. I'm taken from my mom, poked and prodded and shoved into a box. No contact from my mom for the first 3 weeks of my life.
Okay.
Which they now know can kill you.
Yes, that's
right?
the worst, yeah. My wife is an expert on birds, so I have some information here.
So
this is the worst.
It's the worst. So all of a sudden, I'm in pain, seemingly unrelated, but completely related.
Yes.
In the journey, and this was, again, just for everyone here, I'm not taking any drugs. I'm just going into the pain, somatically, going, where is the pain? Where do I feel that? And letting it take me to this point. And I realized, at 55 years old, I'm back at my birth trying to heal shit, right? And I'm like, whoa. And so this unlocked so much of the awareness that I grabbed another technique I learned 20 years ago from a Toltec shaman. And a Toltec shaman from the lineage of Don Juan Matus and Carlos Castaneda, very old shaman. He told me about this technique called recapitulation. So as I'm in that birth, this came back in and I was like, well, why don't I recreate my birth the way I needed it to be? Because my nervous system was trauma and abandonment, right? Pain. Coming into this world, pain, abandonment, no love. I just needed to be on my mom's chest.
Yes.
And feeling the initial love of life, which I didn't get. So it sent me on this path where I'm trying to make up for that. And in the journey of venturing back there, I then remembered this Toltec shaman's recapitulation. I said, in my meditation, let's just go back and rebirth myself. So I wasn't thinking this through. I was open and it was happening. So I was then birthed and then placed on my mom. And I'm telling you, my nervous system in my moment here, because I felt my mom's love that I needed and I didn't get.
Yes.
I can't recreate what physically happened in 1970, but I can actually recreate the nervous system and neurologically, and I can give that back to myself. And so I spent every day revisiting that, and layers, and my nervous system completely changed. And something, energy released out of my, again, this is all just happening. It released out of my spine and came up in this warm feeling and then shot out of my head.
That's amazing.
And I was just like, okay, that's wild. So even though I can spend my time getting people clean water and getting healthy foods and all this stuff that I built my career, there is a world. I'm not the perfect person to say it exactly, because the only thing that I'm saying is I was open to recreating something that was traumatic, but that we have a possibility of recreating our world inside and healing ourselves from within. And this is, listen, I'm not running around saying that psychedelics are necessarily the way to do that. They can do that.
They can help.
It can help.
There's been a lot of research.
Right, for sure. And it can be and people need to take their own journey with that. And I also believe at my core, we have everything we need, always, at all times, if we're willing to be open to it. So, so your story reminded me of like that, and I can't go back anymore, right? I'm different. I'm changed, like some shifts. And then instead of, people look at me as like, you don't seem like you're nervous or abandoned, right? I pursued a lot in my life and I've done a lot, but I feel the peace. And then the more I'm filled up, full of joy and releasing of tension and pressure and abandonment, the more then I want to just give.
Yes.
And that's the beautiful, and it goes back to why we're doing this docuseries and why we're doing this thing and why we're getting together is the more we help each other, the more we support and more we take ownership of our own sovereignty, the more we fill up, the more we heal, the more you want to come together, the more you have empathy because you've emptied the cup of your own stress.
Yes.
And you filled it full of love and joy and connection, community. You naturally have more empathy. You naturally want to share. You naturally want to connect with other like-minded people. I think that's one of the most powerful things we can do in society.
That's the path to happiness, I think.
Yeah. We just found it right now.
Yeah. No, it is about I believe, it is about personal fulfillment. And in the end, one realizes that in order to be happy, we need to live in a happy society.
Yeah.
We cannot be happy if others are unhappy. So then actually creation, I believe creation of what we believe, what is our energy, that's the crucial thing. And it's necessary, or it's important part of our happiness. And then once we start creating things, we want them to be good for others.
For sure.
We want to share them.
Yeah.
So it is the collective creativity that we can achieve and get as human society, which I believe can raise us.
Yeah.
Global happiness.
Yeah, it's and we're lucky too. I don't really believe in luck per se, but I believe in like, for whatever reason, you and I are sitting here in the hills of Malibu.
Yeah.
and that's a privilege. That is just a blessing beyond. I'm a small town kid from, middle America. I'm like, how the hell did any of this happen? But I think that then it is not a pressure of responsibility, but a desire of opportunity to share more and to see what we can do to create opportunities for people that may not be in that situation, or they don't have water. So let's help them get water. They don't have proper food. So there is this, but again, waiting for a government and stuff like that. I'm not really that interested. I don't want to put my faith in a false energy. Right?
And yes, and the more, so we can talk more about happiness, but here about the governments, I know after what happened last years and through COVID and stuff, that this is so fake.
Yeah.
The institutions, the governments, the policymakers, it is so corrupt.
Yeah.
Science has been so abused.
Yeah.
And in a long time, for me, COVID was a big eye-opener. I can see now that the science was abused not only during COVID, but also before and after.
Yeah. Sure.
And so on one side, we are in the dark ages, I would say. Now we don't burn people for bad opinions, but we blame them, we banish them, we accuse them of being whatever. Yeah. So it is modern ages. We don't burn, but the effects are strong. And so in these dark ages, one could easily become very skeptic, right? What can we do? And many people are.
Sure.
But at the same time, I believe that these huge pressures call for strong people to realize that we need to do something. And then, so those people who are able to grasp it, who have the courage, who share the visions of what is happy, of some reasons of consciousness, that are people who can make the change. And also because the good things that people do are more visible now. Right? If everything is shaded and not so much, but if everything is very dark, then the lights are better visible. Yeah. So this is, I believe, perhaps it is my mission, part of my mission, to try to connect the shining lights to make the change. Because under the pressure we can change. If there is just everything average, and yes, I'm lazy. I would be at home. I wouldn't do anything. But sure. I have kids, and I want them to be happy. If I see that the world is collapsing, then it pushes one.
Yeah.
One has to do something. Yeah. So we have a chance. I believe in these critical times. I call it social singularity happening, like huge amount of energy in a short time and big changes and big risk, right? Separate the society everywhere. So this is the time that we have a chance to change.
I agree. Again, we go back to our pain.
Yes.
Our pain and our pressure allowed for the change to happen, right?
Exactly.
So as a society, obviously, there's a lot of pain and there's a lot of pressure right now.
And the thing is, the least, let's say, acceptable we are, the more pain needs to come, right?
Yeah.
So if we are a little bit more acceptable, little pain can hinder, oh, this is not a good way to go, just a sign. But if we are just blind, then more pain needs to come.
For sure.
So,
yeah.
It works on personal, but also global, societal level, I believe.
Absolutely. And that's the beautiful thing, because it's, how could I judge what I went through? How could you judge what you went through your pain? So you don't want it. I didn't want the pain. You didn't want the pain. But the pain became the catalyst for liberation. It became, so as a society becomes stressed and painful, and it's easy to get trapped in the day-to-day. But if we give our power away to the moment of, oh my God, it's all falling apart.
Then the person falls apart.
Yeah. So see the pain, feel it. Now those of who's listening or can enact and create from a place of, hey, this is painful. What else can we do? What else can we create? How else can we be? So again, the opportunity through the global pain, the global challenge. Why would I be creating a docuseries on happiness? Because of the challenges of unhappiness.
Yes.
Right? So it's creating itself through us. Why did you fly all the way here? Right? To talk to me and other people. Because your desire that's coming through wants to create the opportunity for something better to show up.
Yes.
And that is, it's hard sometimes when people are trapped in a particular level of trauma to then see. But if there's any opportunity that anyone listening can just take a step back for a second and just go, whatever's happening now in someone's life, it doesn't mean that it's going to be there forever. It doesn't mean that it has to be there forever. That it is, what is it showing me that I'm not able to see?
Exactly.
And what could I be for this to change inside of me and potentially in my own community?
Yeah.
So going back into the creation of the freaking universe is going into the creation rather than a statement. This is horrible. There's no opportunity for change to happen in that. you've commanded, this is horrible, this is bad, even though, yes, it sucks, but okay, this is happening. What can I do? What can I be? How can I generate? Those are the places where I go so that it moves the energy through me. It doesn't get stuck in me. Because if I get stuck, I am no good to me
And not
or anyone else.
Yeah, I so much agree. And this, of course, the more experience one has, the more we can see that the inconvenience, the bad things happening, even suffering, are there for a purpose.
Yeah.
It is to teach us, to move us.
Yeah.
And if we take it from another point of view, how could we appreciate life, happiness, beauty, and the world we live in, only through understanding also the opposites, right?
Yeah.
Right? So,
Yeah.
so, and what I believe is that it's not that we need to suffer in order to be happy, but we need to be able to understand what it is suffer.
Sure.
And for many people, for me, it was the case. I probably wouldn't have been able to understand properly unless I went through the deep suffering. Yeah. So, and after that, perhaps it might be enough for people just to have a hint, just to experience a little bit of the bad thing and to see it, to keep it on the, let's say, positive side. Because it doesn't need to be symmetric, but we need to be able to see the minus as well and feel it.
And I think, the thing is tricky, which I've found, is that people, we go back to the money thing, for example. If I do this, then I'll be happy. But in actuality, happiness and joy and contentment is cultivated in the daily practice and habits of it. Whereas I think it's a compounding effect.
Yes.
If I can put my feet on the ground and feel the earth, if I can feel some amazing photons
it's so much
from the sun,
to be barefoot,
right? So you feel the earth, you feel, so you now have done two things that are life-giving. Drink some clean water, try to eat some whole food, maybe stop, meditate, journal, do some, like adding these things up. It's not a do this one thing and you will be happy. It's never that way, right? Many things have failed us in this.
I would also mention being able to go out of comfort zone, movement,
of course,
training,
exactly,
push,
move the body, move the. So all of those.
And go through a little pain when stretching, for example, right? it's worth it, right? Because that the big pain doesn't need to come.
Be proactive, or else the gravity is just gonna beat you down. But again, I think that the takeaway is we have this lottery mentality. If just this thing happens, but it's really a cultivation of healthy habits. If we start stringing those together, then that builds the foundation of one. And we're less reactive to life when we're building that foundation. We have more resilience when something doesn't go our way. We're not collapsed fully in just that thing happening, but we're able to go, okay, let's go back to my practices, what I can do.
From some reason, this is not the right way. I look at another one rather than getting into depression, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of opportunity through, again, and then also like-minded people. Find people that are your tribe. Find people to talk to. Find people to connect. Something that I did, I'm quite busy. I do a lot of different things. I can exhaust myself at the end of the day. I work out all the time, all this stuff. But I had a habit of, end of the day, I've eaten good dinner, I've ran the dogs, and then I just throw on something to watch TV. And I was in this habit. And now I broke that habit by just calling up a friend and having a deep conversation and not having the TV on. And just that alone was so powerful because I wasn't checking out. I was actually checking in, just having a conversation with someone. And so my point is that any little habit, when you continue to add those up, are extremely powerful. And even having many healthy things that I do every day, that one little thing, not there's a judgment, I still can watch TV. I'm not judging, watching, whatever. But it became so much more meaningful when I went to sleep knowing that I was connecting to someone I loved.
This is a great example. And now if you look at societies today, many people just keep spending huge amount of time on social networks and stuff. It's such an addiction, right? And there has been research done on Czech doctor, neurologists who the results of being addicted to media, mass media or the internet and stuff has similar effects as an addiction to heroin. It affects the same parts of the brains. So this is how people can become enslaved, manipulated, and things like that. So so this is to me one crucial important thing that we need to manage as people is go back to nature. Be able to connect to land, to grass, to trees, being able to climb on rocks. I do it with my kids. It's so great. Barefoot on rocks is the best thing to do. And fortunately, what I can see that in this situation when we are totally separated, social networks separate us even more. Fortunately, we have deep fakes. We have all these things that manipulate us. Why? Well, because some people are not stupid, and now people understand, I cannot trust anything what I can see on video. It can all be deep fake. So the only thing that people can trust is a personal communication, meeting other people, and perhaps go back to nature. So hopefully I can see this as a way out, like a light in the darkness from this dark age, that people will gradually keeping technologies. They are important. They can be very useful. As a tool, if we don't abuse them, they can be extremely useful. So having the technology on one side and on the other side, going more to natural life, more to nature, more to direct connection of people.
I like that, and I would agree, because that would be my hope too, that it becomes so fake and so disconnected that it actually does the opposite.
Exactly.
It creates implosion on itself.
It's like addiction playing a computer game, but at some point it's too artificial and it just immediately stops being interesting.
Yeah, that's my hope too, because I think we're starting to see that in the clean energy tech too, in the clean energy systems, where these archaic systems of oil and gas and all of these old systems of creating power for us and monopolies that are giving us power, where the infrastructure is actually losing. We don't have enough power for what we're trying to create. For data storage, AI, they're desperately trying to, it all comes down, they're making chips, but they don't have the power. They don't have the power, so it becomes a similar thing where the old systems cannot make enough power. So it's imploding and creating an opportunity for other clean energy systems to come online to supply us with less monopoly power and more decentralized power. We're seeing this through friends of mine and governments. They've reached out, armies, the Navy, these things, because they don't have it. So it's starting to come back around, similar to what you said about the fake side of social and all of this stuff and news. There's a point where it flips.
Yes,
exactly. I hope that more and more people see the flip and then support the flip of us giving resources where resources really are needed.
And we said the crucial thing that large enough number of people can see and support that, so that we don't stay blind and we are open to these changes, to these radical changes. I can see that this as being the test of our evolution. If we are able as human society to raise up and connect and then open our eyes to something that's true after all these fakeness and I don't want to use bad words, manipulation and manipulation, especially manipulation by fear. So that's why we are talking to here to help people to give a second thought and just get rid of this terrible manipulation. It is so bad. It's just everywhere. In Europe, Europe is totally.
Is it bad?
It's so bad. Right? The total loss of freedom of speech in my country and ever in Great Britain as well, right? Yeah, it's just incredible. If somebody told me 12 years ago what might happen, this is not possible. In Great Britain or Europe, we have such a democratic rules. This is ridiculous.
Right.
So
then when it's actually happening,
it is happening. So strongly.
Yeah, it's my nature is to want to solve things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But do it not at the expense of people,
Mm-hmm.
at the benefit of people.
Yes.
Right. And if I can continue with my life pursuing that, bringing more and more incredible people together, I think we share that. And like I've had the opportunity in my life to meet, we talked a little bit about some of the secret rooms I got into and stuff. That once you see that stuff, for me, I'm actually hopeful.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, you're optimistic. I am optimistic. So when I connect, with my buddy Chris I was telling you about is doing some of the, I can't really say much about it here, but the clean energy stuff that is actually working to scale behind the scenes right now.
Yeah, this is awesome.
These are incredible opportunities, but they didn't come. Chris has been trying to do this for 30 years.
Mm-hmm. So it's not new. It has been here, right?
Yeah, it's been here.
Yeah.
But he didn't have the doors open.
Yes.
There wasn't enough pain and pressure.
And that was and I guess it was not in the interest of those who control the energy and stuff.
Exactly,
right?
and now they actually are starting to reach out because they don't have another way.
Yeah, this is good. Yeah.
And I have other friends who are working with some of the biggest corporations literally on the planet who have signed on to create millions of acres of regenerative agriculture that no one knows about, that they're not using as a PR stunt, that they've actually started to do it now.
This is so great. I had actually yesterday talk was about regenerative agriculture. It's something so amazing. It's just healing to planet of Earth.
Yeah.
And it's healing to all this CO2. Like in Europe, we had this crazy Green Deal, which good initial idea, which made sense, got totally abused.
Right.
Totally abused and killed by regulation and destroying the economy of Europe. While the solution is regenerative agriculture, where the grass and flowers and everything takes the CO2 from the air, puts it into the ground. So easy.
Of course.
And it works, and we have proven it that it does work.
Yeah.
Why are we still not doing it globally on a scale?
Yeah, exactly.
It's the time coming, guy. But
that's where that bureaucratic switch of the abusive use of it.
Yes.
Which is, again, why I have less and less and less trust in those systems.
Mm-hmm. I have no trust into the government system.
Right. So it's like supporting friends of mine that are doing stuff and colleagues and that I know that are doing it. That's where I'm like, okay.
This is the way,
They're not doing it. Whoever they are, they're abusing it. Like one of my friends, I'll be a little vague here on purpose, but one of my friends, who's one of the most brilliant people in the clean energy, he's consulted around the world, who knows all these things that work and don't work with technology, he got invited by a very, very big government. Because of that pressure, they didn't have answers and they had a lot of money to give out. And he went and showed up reluctantly. But he goes, let me just look. Let me just see what they're doing with billions and billions and billions of dollars that they say they have. Nothing. They weren't doing anything. Well, they weren't doing anything of any meaning.
Oh, yeah, I understand.
But it was
But they had lots of like some Middle East, I guess,
right? Yeah. It's the title of it. But it's not the actual. Hardworking people good people coming together, I believe that, like we said earlier too, like the global population, number one, we all want to be happy. Number two, we all want to live a sovereign, good, free life with some security.
Freedom is the essence of happiness.
And we have the numbers. We have billions of us that want the same thing. So that's hope.
It is big hope,
right?
And the way how to make the connection so that
Exactly.
the billions can raise up their voice.
Yeah.
The situation that we are here globally, it's like in a sense it's similar when you have big empires just before the collapse of the empires. Huge bureaucracy, people could not trust the governments and the leaders at this stage, and then comes a collapse. It may be a war, it may be a terrible suffering. After that, people need to raise up, they need to support each other in order to survive. Then for a short time, you can even trust perhaps governments because they try to do this. And then there is a big progress, and then again fall off. The difference is that now we are in this process as a whole planet Earth, whole civilization. There is no, the Third World War is pretty much over, right? So we need to do it a different way. We need to do it through the connection of the people who have some consciousness to make the collapse not through war.
Less
less
destructive.
Less painful, less destructive. Yeah.
But again, I think innately we know what to do. We just need to do it.
Yes.
And not, I don't want to give that away to anyone. I want to join with people that also want to do that. And then that's the power. Turn that light on, connect with other people that have that light on, and that light is unstoppable. And stopping going back to this type of societal kind of construct right now of social media and presenting fear all the time and turning on our amygdala and making us our own stress machines, that if we just take for a second boundaries around that type of stimulation to give ourselves a rest, then we can start breaking that system, stopping scrolling, stopping this incessant kind of dopamine. They engineered it for a very good not a good reason. They've engineered it for a reason. Yeah,
it's powerful.
And it works.
Yeah, it works.
Right? Even I find myself going, oh my God, what am I doing? Right? Scrolling, like, oh. It's like, it's very...
It's extremely smart.
Yeah.
It was optimized by AI,
Yeah.
It's like
yeah, and it's... So, all these pressures and all these things, it's like... It's just time to do something different, period. And let's do it.
Yeah. That time is coming now.
Nike did have one thing, right? Let's do it.
Thank you so much for this inspiring, great talk. Indeed, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's make the connection of people with great minds and let us all open to happiness.
Yeah.
And first, maybe think what it means to be happy, not making more money, but perhaps going out of comfort zone, taking some more risk.
For sure.
And connecting to other people and doing things which are good and creative for everybody else. Thank you so much for this inspiring talk.
Oh man, you're welcome. You're welcome, and I'm grateful that you showed up here, and I'm grateful for the awakening you had, and for what you're putting your energy into. You could do whatever you want. I mean, we certainly could just do whatever we want.
We are extremely powerful beings.
Yeah.
We all, with our minds, we can create reality.
Yeah. Stay connected. Let's keep going, because it's necessary.
Yes.
And the time literally is now. And if anyone wants to check out, we have our website, roadtohappy.net. You can find the journey as we're continuing to build out this happiness world. We're actually creating a movement. It's not just the docuseries.
This is great.
Because what we learned when I did Down to Earth with Zac is from that success. You never know what's going to happen when you shoot something. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be successful, but you give it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
We had a lot of success, and I had hundreds of thousands of people just reaching out to me, not to mention everyone else, right? And they were moved, emotional.
Yeah.
They were inspired. They learned something. And then you know what they wanted? They wanted to do something.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to contribute.
This is the most important,
right?
Yes.
So what we didn't have an ability to do that at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So this time,
yeah,
we're creating a movement to support people along the way.
Yes, and to take their activity, their willingness to contribute.
Yes.
Yes, fantastic. Yes.
Movement.
Yes. Yes. We are all in.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Bam.